Whether you are listening, whether you are viewing, wherever you are, whether it's morning, whether it's afternoon, whether it's evening, I bring you greetings from my journey with Paula G. I am your host, Paula G, and I am so glad that you have chosen this time to spend with us. You know, I always say that time is precious. It is the one thing that you cannot get back. So for you to think it not robbery to spend this time with us is truly, truly appreciated. So greetings to each and every one of you who are tuning in for the first time. And for those of you who have chosen to continue to make this journey each and every week, we thank you so much for continuing on the journey. We also have to give love. We have to give a shout out to those who have chosen to be a part of this journey through their underwriting support. And that would be indeed our underwriters. We appreciate each and every one of them so very much because without them, we would not have the means to provide this program of which we could stream across a variety of platforms and air on a variety of platforms. We have been so blessed since we started this journey to expand the platforms, the networks, the streaming networks, all different aspects of technology to spread the word of the journey. So we thank our underwriters. We're just so grateful for our underwriters. And if you're interested, if you have a business, you have a product, you have a service, you're looking for worldwide exposure, reach out to jerryvoicelive at gmail.com or Paula at paulagvoice.com. Put underwriting opportunities in the subject line, and we will be sure to follow up with you and have a discussion about how we can share our journey and you can share your business, product, or service with our audience. So we thank you all so much for that consideration. I also invite you to stay connected with me throughout all social media platforms. Paula G Voice, very simple across the board. Paula G Voice, as well as my website, paulagvoice.com, where you'll find my book, my courses, blogs with inspiration and motivation and encouragement and some tips on how you can juggle this journey called life while walking in the gifts and talents that God has given you. A radio show, a television show. If you missed the live broadcast, the streaming, you can go to my website and there are playlists there. And they're always being updated and there are changes that are being made there as well. So paulagvoice.com. Make sure you check us out. Like, share, subscribe. Y'all know the drill. Well, once again, we thank you all so much for joining us. And today I want to share with you something that I've been experiencing lately. And it's been shared with me through other individuals who have been sharing some of the same things. And it just had kind of got me to thinking about some things. So I want to share those with you and you can let me know. You can always email me, paul at paulagvoice.com, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feedback from any of the programming. But I want to talk today about how our thoughts shape our world, how our thoughts shape our world. And when I was thinking of this topic, there were different things that came to mind, different experiences that I've had. So as of recent, I've been hearing a lot of what we call, for my particular age group, old school music. And with the technology now and how these songs and this music is streaming, sometimes you have the lyrics that will display across the screen while the music is playing if you're watching a video or what have you. And I don't know if y'all have had this experience, but you know that it might have been a song that you grew up on. Maybe it was more than one song. And you would sing along with it. You knew the lyrics, and maybe there was a part of the song you weren't quite sure what they were saying, or there was a part of a song where you thought you knew what they were saying. And you've been singing those lyrics all these years, only to find out that that's not actually what they were saying. Now, I don't want to cite any specifics because I don't want to, mention any particular artist. But it has been comical listening to these songs all these years and then seeing the lyrics scroll across the screen. I'm like, oh, that's what they were saying. It sounded like this, but that's actually what they were saying. Or it was something totally different from what you thought it was. Yet the way that you thought the lyrics were being sung shaped your thought either about that song or about a connection you had to it or a memory or something of that nature. So for the most part it's been rather comical, like, it's I'm in my sixth decade and I'm just realizing that that lyric is actually something else. And all this time I was feeling a certain way about this song based on these lyrics. And now I'm looking at it differently because I'm like, okay, that's not actually what they were saying. And then there have been incidents where, as a child, as a young person, you shaped your thought or you shaped your feelings about family members or friends. And now that you're in a different season, maybe you have had the opportunity to look back, maybe you've had the opportunity to have conversations with certain people. You're now finding that the situation, the circumstance, the thought, the feeling that you thought had been there all of these years actually was not the actual case as you've had these discussions. And you find yourself saying, you know what? All these years, I thought you were, and you can fill in the blank. I thought you were upset with me, or I thought you didn't even remember that, or I thought you were feeling some kind of way, whatever, however you can fill in the blank. Have you found yourself in that situation? And for me, it has changed how I have thought about certain individuals or how I have viewed certain individuals. And those kinds of things have been relayed to me as well as I've had conversations with some young people who are now adults and how they have expressed, my opinion, my feeling, my view, my perspective on a situation as I was growing up, or a relationship with a family member or members as I was growing up, or observing that relationship between family members as I was growing up. I always thought, you can fill in the blank, and never knew, you can fill in the blank, and now I understand why, you can fill in the blank of whatever it is, and your perspective changes. And with that sometimes comes certain feelings. Sometimes it brings guilt upon the person that they now have a revelation. Sometimes it brings anger, sometimes it brings joy, sometimes it brings relief, resolution, release. But whatever the situation is, however you fill in the blanks, it now leaves us in this season of our life with a different perspective, one that is perhaps more accurate than the one we have perceived all these years. So it got me to thinking of just how our thoughts and how we view things, how we view people, how we view circumstances truly, truly changes our perspective on things and it shapes our world. I remember reading about a story, and I can't recall if it was a devotional or part of a book, or I can't remember what it was. But it was a story about a young family, a husband and a wife and a little boy. He was an only child. And he cites an incident where he's an adult now, but as a little boy, maybe 6, 7, 8 years old, he created this art project in class at school for his mother and worked hard on it most of the school day. By the end of the school day, he had finished this art project for his mother, and he was so excited. And he was thinking all day long when he takes it home to her how surprised she's going to be and how happy she's going to be, and just the joy that he's going to feel in presenting her with this project that he had taken the time to meticulously create for her throughout the school day, and got on the school bus and he's excited and he's walking home to the house from the school bus, and he gets in the house and, mommy, 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 look what I made for you in school today. He's all excited. And his mother says, Didn't I tell you to make your bed and put your breakfast dishes in the sink before you left for school this morning? Your bed has been made unmade all day long. I left those dishes on the table because I'm not putting them in the sink. I have told you over and over to put those dishes in the sink. And she totally did not notice or see this project. And those kinds of incidents happened throughout this young man's childhood. He would come home all excited with something. Maybe this time, if I share this with her, I show her that I got an A, or I won something at school, or I kicked the ball far, or whatever it was. You know how children come and they're sharing all of their little excitements throughout the day. But each time he was met with, didn't I tell you to do such and such? Oh, that's nice, but you should have done so and so. I've got to get ready for work. I've got to get dinner started. All of these things that mom would throw at him coming through the door. So he got to the point where he became quite bitter. He just became quite bitter and closed in to himself. Yet he continued to try to seek his mother's attention. And as he got older, those efforts to seek her attention became negative. Every time he got in trouble at school, it was to the point where she had to come up to the school to pick him up. And even though she was upset, at least he was getting that attention. It was negative attention. And by that point, to him, negative attention was better than no attention at all. And throughout his young life, this manifested because he felt my mother doesn't love me. I'm a burden. She's always fussing. And I just can't seem to do anything right. And his behavior in trying to get his mother's attention over and over repeatedly wound up in frustration for him, to the point where he just felt unwanted. He felt worthless. He felt unloved. And he began to abuse drugs. He began to smoke. He began to drink. He became an alcoholic. He became a drug addict, got himself in trouble, juvenile, wound up in jail, all of these negative things. And throughout, his mother would be like, I just don't understand what is wrong with him. He's got a roof over his head, clothes on his back. We provide his needs for him. I just don't get it. I don't understand why he has had a lifetime of trouble. And in one incident where he was released from jail, and he was found himself at his mother's home. And by this time, I believe the father had passed away. By this time, I believe the father had passed away. And the mom was sitting there, and I think they were sitting at the table, and she says, I just don't understand you. Your father and I provided for you. You had a roof over your head. You never went without. I don't understand why you have this lifetime of making these bad choices. And through his rehabilitation, he had gained a bit of counseling and therapy. And through the counseling and through the therapy, he was able to peel back those layers. You all have heard me talk about peeling back those layers and get to the core of his behavior. And the core of his behavior was the hunger for his mother's love, the hunger for his mother's attention. And he began to share this with her, how he always felt unwanted, unloved, uncared for, and he would try to get her attention through positive means. And when that didn't come to fruition, he then resorted to negative means. And he just wanted his mother to love him, to notice him, to pay attention, to love on him, to give him positive accolades, to let him know how wonderful and precious he was. And as he was sharing this, tears started streaming from his mother's face. And she started to cry. And he couldn't understand the tears. He couldn't understand why his mother was crying. And she began to share with him why she was crying. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back after the break, I'm going to share with you the rest of the conversation between mother and son. So stay tuned for a few messages, and we, if I can talk, We'll be back in a moment. And welcome back to My Journey with Paula G, where we are juggling this journey called life while walking in the gifts and the talents that God has given us. Now, before the break, I was sharing with you a bit of a story about a young man who, throughout his life, sought his mother's attention. And initially, he did so through positive means, but when that didn't render results, he then resorted to negative means of getting her attention. And he got to the point where he felt that negative attention from mom and getting attention, uh, getting my mother's attention through negative means was better than not getting her attention at all. And he was sharing with her that his objective, his goal, his desire was just to be noticed, to be loved by her, for her to give him accolades and to tell him how much she loved him. And as he was sharing this with his mom, he's now an adult, he was sharing this with his mom, and she began to cry. Tears just started streaming down her face. And she began to share with him her journey. And in that moment, she realized how her journey affected her son. She realized how her journey shaped his world. And she began, and she could remember, there was the other thing too, is she could remember a lot of those incidents that he was sharing with her, where he came home with that project that first time. And she began to share, she said, it was never about you. This is mom talking, was so caught up in my own despair, distress. And she began to share how things were not going well, or things did not go well between her and his father. Yet they put on a good front in front of him, because we always do these things as parents. Parents stay together, parents endure things, parents tolerate each other, if you will. I don't really like to use that word, but tolerate each other, if you will, for the sake of the children. And so we may put on this front that, life is beautiful and, we're one big happy family. Yet behind the scenes, there's a lot of turmoil and unhappiness. And she began to share about how unhappy she was in her marriage, and how her husband was always criticizing her and she could never do anything right, and how frustrating it was for her, but she really couldn't vocalize that to her husband. And so when her son would come home, she transferred those feelings, those negative feelings, those emotions. She transferred all of that, unfortunately, to her son. So when he came through the door, she didn't really see him, because she was so caught up in her own, negative thoughts, that it came out. Y'all follow what I'm saying? It just came out. And in that moment, she realized how her behavior affected her son throughout his life, and how his thoughts in regard to how he thought she felt about him shaped his world. And in that moment, there was a lot of healing between mother and son. There was a lot of healing. She was able to listen to him in all of these incidents throughout his life, and how her responses made him feel. He was able to listen to her, to understand why she was feeling the way that she was feeling. And unfortunately, from her own admission, didn't quite handle it properly. And we've all done that at some point. We were in a bad mood. We had a bad situation, and someone comes into our presence that has nothing to do with that situation, and we kind of take it out on them. And in that moment, we, whether we realize it or not, are shaping their thought about us, or how we feel about them, which may not necessarily be true, but they're shaping those thoughts. They're shaping those feelings based on how we are treating them, how we are interacting them. So what's the point? What is the point of this whole story? The point is, our thoughts truly shape our world. regardless of what side of the situation you're on. If you're the person that's receiving the brunt of the venting, your thoughts will shape your world around how you interact with that person or how you think that person feels about you. On the other hand, if you're the person that is taking things out on everyone, your thoughts based on how they respond will also shape your world and how you interact with them. Because sometimes we don't realize, that we're spewing some of this stuff at people. And then when they respond in a negative way, we're like, well, what's wrong with them? Why are they responding that way? I didn't do anything to them, not realizing that subconsciously we're kind of taking things out on them. So, I always have these conversations about mindset. I have these conversations about our subconscious mind. And it just brings to light how so very important it is for us to express fully how we feel to the person that we are interacting with, to the person that we have the situation with, to the person that we have the problem with, preferably in the moment. Now, granted, sometimes the moment is not the wisest time because there may be things that we say that we may regret later because we're in the moment, we're emotional, we're upset, and all we want to do is just hurt the other person because they've hurt us. And later down the road, we think about what we've said or done. And even though we may have been justified, how we delivered has probably done more harm and more damage than the original situation itself. I heard this phrase once, so I can't quite claim it, but as my own. But words are like toothpaste. We can squeeze them out, but we can't take them back. We can squeeze out these words, but once they're out, we can apologize. We can say we're sorry, but we can't take them back because they have had their effect on the individual whom we have spewed all these negative words out to. So we really have to be consciously aware of how we carry ourselves, how we interact with our brother, how we interact with our sister. We have to discern those moments where, in the moment, I can articulate how your behavior makes me feel and what I will or won't tolerate, put up with, however you want to phrase it. Or discern, now is not the time to respond. I'm going to pull back, collect my thoughts, and address the issue later because what buried feelings never die. When you start suppressing those things, the anger and the resentment and all those things come up to the surface. They kind of simmer underneath the surface, and at some point they come up to the surface, and sometimes they hit the surface at the most inopportune moments. You know what I'm saying? The most inopportune moments. So we have to be very careful and discerning, articulating in the moment, using wisdom and silence in the moment, thinking about what it is that we need to say to express how a person's behavior made us feel, or just simply, there's an old saying, let it roll off your back like but water off a duck's back. Sometimes we have to do that as well. So we have to be very prayerful and discerning. On the other hand, when we're the individual that's receiving this, this negative energy from an individual, we have to stop. You know what? I haven't done anything to so and so. They must be having a bad day. Something else, somewhere else must be going on. And that is what this energy is all about. It has nothing to do with me. So therefore, I can't allow it to settle in my spirit. And I may need to bring it to the person's attention because sometimes the person doesn't even realize it. The person doesn't even realize how their behavior is affecting someone else. Are you okay today? You seem a little cross. You seem a little upset. Have I done something? Have I said something? And sometimes you're going, no, you have. Okay, well, let's talk about what's going on because right now your energy is just really sharp. And, you said I haven't done or said anything wrong. So let's talk. And you may be surprised that that person, that may be just what they need, is for someone to just listen to what it is that they have to say. God uses us in so many different ways that sometimes we don't even realize how or when He is using us. And in that moment, He may be using you to help the person process through whatever it is that they're feeling, to gain a new perspective, and to gain some peace in that moment, in that situation. You may be that vessel that they need in that moment, because we all have these challenges while we are juggling this journey called life, while we're walking in the gifts and the talents that God has given us. We all have these challenges. So let's begin, and some of you already have, and if you haven't, let's begin to look at things through a different lens, to open ourselves to be in position to be of assistance, of service, of help, of blessing others, of being a place where someone can feel comfortable sharing or venting, and we can perhaps help them process through some situations that they may be dealing with. And in turn, develop a better relationship between the two of you, as well as other individuals as well. So, God doesn't necessarily come down with a memo and tell us how He's going to use us, but He indeed does use us in a mighty way and in many ways. So I hope that helped you today. We have certainly come to the end of our journey, and I'd like to thank each and every one of you for tuning in, for listening, for viewing. We thank you all so much for embracing the journey. We thank our underwriters as well for embracing the journey and for helping us to provide a platform to share each and every week how we're all juggling this journey called life. Make sure you stay connected. PaulaGVoice.com, my website, social media across the board, Paula G Voice. And until next time, remember that the greatest conversation you will ever have is the one that takes place in between your ears. What are you speaking to yourself? Is God a part of that conversation? And are you listening to His still small voice? Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, embrace the journey.